Welcome to another episode of The Mind Game. We're going to go right into it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to go right to it. This gentleman needs no introduction. If you ain't got no TV, then he needs an introduction. But if you got a TV, you know who this is. We've been missing each other. We finally got on the same page to whereas I can get him on the show and get down to business. This is Mr. Persinger. He's leading the way not only as an innovator and an investor, but just overall young leadership qualities that this city needs, an infusion of young talent to take us where we need to be in the future. And he's doing exactly that. He's all over the news with his projects downtown. And we're just going to let him tell his story. I saw, before we go any further, I saw those plans, I think it was in the newspaper, of what you're doing down there. And that was, where did you get this from? A particular city or cities in general? What you're talking about as far as the shops in that area? Oh boy.
So what's been interesting about this experience is being CEO of the Erie Downtown Development Corporation is having a keen sense of the community's challenges and understanding what's going on in other cities really around the world that we could learn from to tackle these challenges.
Okay.
So we've had this problem here in the past where we bring in consultants from all over the world and they don't really have a sense of what's going on in Erie. They're here for a few days at a time and they don't really get a good grasp or good understanding of what's really needed to address our core problems. So we've been here, I've been living here, my family's been here since 1952. My colleagues, they're from here, they're raising their families here. I ran for mayor, so I definitely got a sense going door to door of the community's concerns, their issues, their needs. And so what we tried to do with these first set of projects is take a look at all those issues and figure out what we could do as a development company to address those issues. So our group, the Erie Downtown Development Corporation, was formed to revitalize downtown Erie through property redevelopment. As many people know from going downtown, from visiting downtown, there are a lot of blighted or underutilized buildings. And part of our problem here is that we've had a very soft real estate market. So it doesn't make sense for traditional investors to put money into these projects because they just don't get a good return on those investments. So what's unique about going on here is that we have a core group of visionary business and philanthropic leaders who raised money to undertake these redevelopment projects, to get in and revitalize these historic buildings that are vacant, that are crumbling, that have had years of deferred maintenance.
Okay.
Back in November, when we acquired these properties on North Park Row, we acquired 8 real estate parcels. There's 5 buildings. It's a total of 100,000 square feet. That's basically the equivalent of having 50 single-family homes. Could you imagine having 50 single-family homes? And at the same time, only 20,000 of those 100,000 square feet were being utilized. So could you imagine buying a house, a 4-bedroom house, and only using 1 bedroom and letting the other 3, not just letting the other 3 not use the other 3, but letting those other 3 just rot. In some of these buildings, the roof is caving in, there's exposed wiring, exposed piping, the floors they have holes in them. So we really have these buildings that are just crumbling.
Okay.
And at the same time, we have quite a few socioeconomic issues in downtown.
Yes, we do. Let me touch on something very briefly here. I already like him right off the top. He talked about the consultants coming here, only here for a few days. He didn't even mention about the price tag that they was charging the city. He ain't even talked about the hundreds of thousands of dollars that they didn't pay these people to give them an idea. Okay, not a thought or a plan, but gave them an idea of what should happen in the city. So right away, I like the way he commented. Let's get back to what you're talking about. To put things in the proper perspective, 50 houses that they could put, and that's if you build a 2,000 square foot house. Okay, anybody that knows anything about real estate, anything over 2,000 is a big house.
It's a big house.
Okay, so actually you can put 75 houses in that square, in that footage, what he's talking about. The 3 businesses that got displaced.
Yeah.
Can you talk about where y'all at and who's helping them and what became of that?
Certainly. So when we acquired the properties in September, but we didn't take possession until November. The previous owner had a few months to get all of his possessions out. He had the buildings just stuffed with items from his bar, collectibles, bar items. So he had some time to get those out. And when we took possession in November, we had informed the tenants of the new ownership. We'd informed them in September as well. But we didn't really have our plan fully fleshed out and approved by our board. We report to a board of directors. We're a private organization. There's no taxpayer money involved. This is all private money that's been pledged to these efforts. So we have to go through a decision-making process by our board.
Okay.
And our board meets every other month. So we're not often at a stage where we could reveal what we're trying to do with these buildings.
Okay.
And it took a few months for us to really figure out if this was the right plan, if this would potentially have good tenants in them, if there would be good financial backing, because although we've raised $27.5 million, we need $33 to $39 million for this block alone. So there's more money to be raised. When we informed the tenants, we sent them formal notice in March of this past year, March 5th, that we would not be renewing their leases. Their leases expire at the end of October. And so for us, as I said, these buildings are crumbling. And for us to rehabilitate these historic buildings, we need them vacant of tenants. This is not a HGTV project that gets done in a weekend and everyone's smiling through it. These are buildings that have decades of deferred maintenance. We are going to take these buildings down to the studs and put in new plumbing, new utilities, new floors.
Y'all gutting everything.
We're gutting everything.
Now, does that include, I'm kind of not clear, does that include from Catfish Kitchen to the credit union and then down, or what is that?
Nope, the Catfish Kitchen building is owned by a separate owner, so they're not our tenant. And the credit union in Alchemy, that building's owned by another owner. So that's not our.
Everything in between?
Everything in between.
Oh, it's got to go. Okay, so, what he's talking about, to just grasp, when I was a kid, that, I don't know, Joe's Coconut or whatever, that used to be the Greyhound bus station.
Yes, that's right.
So if y'all have to go in there and do anything, it goes down saying how much work y'all gonna have to do in that building alone.
Correct.
Okay.
In that building alone, I was up on the roof the other day, and there's probably 1.5 feet of water just collecting on the roof. And so, as you can imagine, if it's not draining properly, it's starting to leak through the roof and causing roof damage on all those buildings.
So that in itself is an astronomical project to overtake. Now,
so we had all these problems. We had these historic buildings that are crumbling. We have the poorest zip code in the entire country.
Right there.
Median income is $10,800. And we have a USDA designated food desert downtown. There's not a good, stable supply of
food desert.
healthy, fresh food. That's right. It's been designated by the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Okay.
And we know that people aren't coming down to downtown as much as we want on nights or weekends. So we looked at this block and we thought, we have all these problems, we have all these issues. What can we do with these buildings to transform them, to tackle the food desert, to spur some economic business and job growth, to create a destination downtown, and to showcase our rich cultural diversity? So as we looked at the block and we thought, you know what brings everyone together? Food.
Oh, that's excellent right there. And he's not even touching on what's down the street, okay? And I'm talking about the bayfront and the lake and all that. He's not even touching on that. How do y'all plan to go about, like you said, poor zip code? You talked about the job creation. What about the crime? I know when I got back to Erie, I was out and about in Mill Creek at a few spots, and I was like, hey, well, let's go downtown. And there were some people out there saying, no, we don't go downtown. Okay. I know that you're down there whenever you get a chance, and you cannot mistake what you're seeing, in particular in the daytime, with the park situation and people hanging out. How do y'all plan to address that?
So we understand that there's a perception that people feel downtown is not safe.
Okay.
We've been working with the mayor's office, with the chief of police and his deputies, with the Downtown Partnership, the Perry Square Alliance, and other organizations that are downtown to try and make a more welcoming environment downtown where people feel safe to bring their families downtown.
Exactly.
part of what we can do from our role, we are not the police department, we're not going to arrest anybody, but what we can do is we can create more density. When we have more life downtown, that will make more people want to come downtown. When they see that there are things to do, when there's activities going on, when there are bustling shops and restaurants, then that helps, I think, overcome that perception that downtown is not a warm or welcoming or friendly or safe environment. So we're going to spend between $33 and $39 million, and just on that block alone. Afterwards, it will be assessed at somewhere between $21 and $25 million. That will result in an increase from, right now we're paying $37,000 in real estate taxes. After we do these rehabilitations, we'll be paying $700,000 to $850,000 every year in perpetuity to the school district, to the county, and to the city.
Now, once again, the people that's listening and watching this have to understand the ramifications of what this individual is doing for the Erie, in particular, the downtown area. When he's talking about the money that they're going to generate, you got so much blight in the city where they're getting nothing as far as school taxes or any of that stuff. They're getting no money from it. And he's going to bring in $700,000 to $800,000 to give to our Erie schools, to give to the city for services. I mean, we can't do nothing but applaud your efforts, young man. Well, and getting back at you. And we're not even talking about your plans, because I know you got plans for further development on that bayfront and so on and so forth. Who's been helping you the most?
So I would say we owe a great deal of credit to our board organizations. They are the ones who came up with the vision. They are the ones who came up with the money. Without money, you can't do anything.
Exactly.
So we're so fortunate that there was this amount of money locally that was willing to be basically patient capital, because they're not going to get a return overnight. It's going to take some time to turn around these buildings, to get businesses in them, to get more activity downtown. So their payment is not going to come for quite some time.
We understand it as a community. Speaking of which, okay, $40 million off the top, 20 years from now, what would you think that investment would be?
Our hope is that it's more than $40 million. What it's going to be,
it will be.
We have been, for the last 6 decades, a declining population and a declining economy.
Exactly.
So we hope that this is the moment now where everyone, the public sector, the private sector, out in the neighborhoods, we've collectively organized ourselves, and we've committed to saying the decline ends now, decline ends here. We're going to get this city growing again, and we're going to see a prosperous future for everyone here.
Well, if you don't want to put a ballpark figure, I'll put a ballpark figure. I think that $40 million now, 20 years down the road, it could easily be anywhere from $80 to $100 million. You know what I'm saying? That's a big number, but I think it can happen. And it took somebody such as yourself and your board to have a vision to be able to make this happen. I truly believe y'all gonna make it happen.
Thank you very much.
Do y'all have any aspirations of going into any collaborations with other people in the city? I mean, other leaders, other corporations and companies?
The interesting thing about this is our staff, my colleague Matt Wachter, who's our Vice President for Finance and Development, and my colleague Nicole Reitzel, who is our Vice President for Community Engagement, we discussed this concept of a culinary arts district internally, and then we vetted it with different partners in the community, people who are in the hospitality industry, people who are in the food and beverage industry, to get a sense of whether this would work and how it would work. We, as we say, we're focused on making great spaces, but we need great partners to operate in those spaces. So we're looking at 9 vendors in our food hall. We need a who's who of the best of Erie's culinary talent to be operating in those spaces. We think so.
Those plans in the paper showed somebody's vision, whether it was yours or your corporation, the board or whatever, that will bring Erie into the 21st, going into the 22nd century as it should be, okay? And 2 things, where did y'all get these ideas from is what I'm trying to come back to, whether just, like I said, one city, a group of cities, just you went somewhere and saw, you think that this could happen here in Erie and came back with it?
So I've got a experience of being and living in other cities. I grew up right outside New York. I've lived in Boston, Washington, D.C., Australia, South Bend, Indiana, have traveled all over the world. Over the past year alone, I've been in 28 cities.
I believe that. Every time I'm trying to get in touch with you, ain't here.
I know, I apologize.
Okay.
Because I had been on the road a lot. And part of that was trying to raise money. We're trying to get more money, trying to get more investors. We want people committed to the future of Erie. We want to show them that this is a place that has a bright future. And if you invest now, you'll get a great return. Part of it has also been talking to people who are doing this work in other cities.
That's what I'm talking about. Okay.
Yeah, we've really tried to learn the best of what's happening in other cities, whether it's in Boston or Cincinnati or New York or Washington, D.C. We've tried to get a sense of what are they doing in those cities to help their downtowns thrive? What are they doing to showcase their local talent, whether it's culinary or artists or something else?
Okay.
And what are they doing to make sure that they are a destination city? Lots of great lessons we've learned over the last year.
Well, you ran the complete gamut. When you went from South Bend to Boston, okay, and in Washington and all those places, there's not pretty much too much in between. Okay, what about the corporations here? Wabtec just came. Do you have any plans or getting any collaborations with them? Erie Insurance is here, Fortune 500 company. Have you thought about doing any work, or has anybody reached out to you as far as going into a collaboration after you get this project up and going? Because this is a humongous deal. And it's going to take, what would you say, 3 to 5 years?
At least. These buildings are in pretty bad shape, and it's going to take some time to turn them around. But there's already a lot of great collaboration going on. Our board consists of some of the major employers in town. Erie Insurance, the 2 hospitals, the 2 private universities in town, the major banks. We have some great manufacturing companies, Custom Engineering, Plastech, McInnes Rolled Rings. We also have great collaboration with a number of other partners in town. So an example is the Erie Innovation District. Whereas we've been traveling all over the country, a lot of our efforts have been focused on attracting Opportunity Zone investors. Opportunity Zone investors are these new types of investors that provide incentives for investing in low-income census tracts. And there are some investors who are excited about investing in real estate, and we talk to them. But there are some investors who want to invest in tech companies. And because we want more dollars coming into Erie, any dollar coming into Erie anywhere is a positive for everybody.
Period.
So when we find those investors who are interested in tech companies, we've introduced them to Carl Sanchek at the Innovation District. And he's done the same thing. If there are investors looking at real estate, he points them in our direction. So it's just that's a good example of some of the collaboration that's been going on right now.
Excellent.
But to your point about these cities that we've been looking at, I heard our board president, Tim Nicasser, who's the chairman of Erie, or the president and CEO of Erie Insurance, talk. He had a great statement about what we've been doing. We've been learning from all these cities, but we've been putting an Erie lens on it. So sometimes you have consultants, and they'll come and say, you need to do this in your park because this is what works in Miami. And we'll look at them and say, well, Miami doesn't get 200 inches of snow. So what are we doing to put an Erie lens on everything?
Exactly, the overall.
Exactly. There are things that work well in Miami or San Antonio or Los Angeles that may not work well here because of our climate. There are things that work well in New York or Chicago, but may not work here because we have a smaller population. So we're trying to take that into consideration.
The more you talk, Mr. Persinger, the more impressed I am because what you're saying basically, or just got through saying, everything don't work as well everywhere. Okay.
Correct.
And when you start to put the plan together, thinking that something in Miami or San Antonio can work and do the same thing here in Erie, the only thing you're doing is wasting money.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So you don't have no money to waste. So whatever y'all do has to be on the money because this is a pivotal time here in Erie. I don't have to tell you, the population has declined over the years. The crime rate is creeping up there if it haven't already. And people just don't get Erie as they've had bad press in the news throughout the whole country. And people just don't look at Erie as a place to say, when they wake up in the morning, hey, let's move to Erie.
Yeah.
Okay. But over time, with your vision and your company's vision, I think that can change. What's the steps? Now y'all gonna get the buildings cleaned out, and then where y'all gonna start putting it together?
So we have 5 buildings there that we own, 100,000 square feet. 2 of the buildings, the Sherlocks and Park Place buildings, they are vacant right now. So we've been working through the construction documents and all the buildings down there, and we've done a lot of demolition work to get the site ready. We haven't started any construction yet. As I mentioned, there was a lot of items left over, and there was a lot of demolition that needed to occur just to get the site ready. So that's what we've been working on. We'll continue to work through the construction documents. When the tenants' leases expire at the end of October, then we'll start construction. That construction could take several years. These are historic buildings. They were built between 1858 and 1865. We don't know what we're going to find when we get in there. It was interesting. We had a group in there yesterday for a meeting, and one of the gentlemen said, "You have 3 inches of plaster caked onto a brick wall. Before you even get started, you have to scrape all this plaster away." And I said, "I know, we've got a big job ahead of us." So those are the steps. As we go through construction, we'll be putting out RFPs and talking to the community about the type of vendors that they would want to see in those buildings. Again, the food hall is going to have 9 vendors, so we're looking for who's who, the best of Erie's culinary talent. We're also trying to create the best mix and match so people will want to come throughout the day. We can't just have only dinner items so people aren't showing up in the morning. We can't just have only breakfast items so people aren't showing up in the nighttime. We got to figure out who's going to be that vendor who offers a coffee and bagel in the morning. Who's going to offer, is it at lunchtime, sushi, salad, sandwiches? At dinner, is it something more hearty? And is it going to be a ice cream shop, or is it going to be a cookie shop? Who's going to be the dessert? So this is where we want the public. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come on, because I hope your viewers will see this and it will turn their wheels about what they want to see downtown, because that's what we want to do here. We want to celebrate the best that Erie has to offer. We want to cultivate an Erie experience. We want people to come downtown.
Well, hopefully the viewership will pay attention to this, and when you start to look at putting, from what you're saying, you want a continual flow throughout the whole day, morning, noon, and night. And if you get the right people in there, you'll have that. Because when they come downtown in the morning on their way to work or whatever, they'll get their coffee and bagel. When they sit in their offices or whatever they're doing downtown, they're gonna say, "Oh, well, let's go up there and get us a sandwich." And then in the evening time when they come down to be entertained, boom, there it is right there for them. The demolition, the construction, all the work that y'all gonna be doing in these buildings, are y'all looking at doing most of it? I know y'all got to watch y'all costs and whoever come in with the lowest bid, but are you looking to do a lot of it local?
We are. We hope to engage local talent. We want, again, this to create some jobs. At the same time, we got to get it right. So we want to make sure that we've got the talent that's capable of doing the work, the skills that's capable of doing the work. We think that's here. And we've got to make sure that we keep an eye on the cost, because the whole goal is for this to be self-sustaining. So we have to figure out how these projects make money today, tomorrow, and in the long run. So what you made an interesting point as well about people being entertained. We want these buildings to be community assets. We want people to come downtown. So we'll be programming these spaces. We want to have events and activities. On one night after dinner, after work, you may find a great local band. You may find a performance by a group from the Playhouse. On a Saturday morning, you could find a story time for kids or a magician. We want to be putting on different activities and events to really get people to come downtown all hours of the day.
And that's the key. And not only that, but you're looking at you have to take a look at the diversity aspect of it. You have diversity. From when I was growing up here, it was blacks and Caucasians, and I'm gonna keep it real with you. There wasn't no diversity here. I come back 20 years later, and you got just about every nationality that you could possibly think of. So you have to keep that in mind when you're planning these spots and the foods and stuff like that. And also the entertainment factors downtown, to get these people to come out and see that the investment that y'all made is not just for y'all, but it's for the community in general. What's your educational background?
I went to undergraduate at Harvard, and I went to law school at Notre Dame.
So this, we're not just talking to, and I ain't trying to throw no universities under the bus or anything, but we're not just talking to the average individual. Right off the top, I could tell that you've had an upper level education. And when you talk Harvard in the Fighting Irish, is one of my favorite sports college teams of all time. That lets you know that you're in the game. You could have
I've been blessed. I've been blessed with some great opportunities. I had wonderful parents who stressed the importance of education, and I had great coaches growing up that helped me along the way.
That's excellent. That's what I wanted to hear. You could have went anywhere and took your talents anywhere, John. I mean, you got a great talk game. You could took your and you sound like you know what you're doing. I mean, you just don't fall off a boat and get somebody to give you $29 to $40 million. What brought you back to Erie?
Family. My mom's family moved here in 1952. My maternal grandparents, Dr. John and Dorothy DeMarco, raised their 5 kids here. I've got about 25 on my mom's side, aunts, uncles, cousins, second cousins who are here, and my wife and I wanted to raise our kids around family, and so it's been great to, in a pinch, if something comes up, you can call an aunt or an uncle and say, can you watch the kids for a few minutes, or a cousin? And so I think that's what draws a lot of people here.
Exactly.
Is that sense of family. And what we're trying to do with our projects downtown is create that sense of community. We want families, we want people to come downtown.
Okay. Well, it goes without saying, with you at the helm of your corporation and your board and the investors, I truly believe we're going to turn the corner. The same situation. I went left and went a few spots and stayed, but it's something about that water, I think, on the lake that brings you back. You know what I'm saying? Erie is going to always be home to me, and I'm just glad that we got young leaders and young entrepreneurs such as yourself willing. I know Mr. Mursky talked about it when he was on my show. Willing to take a try, whether you fail or not, just willing to take that try to make Erie the best place it could possibly be. The pleasure's all mine, and I want you to know, young man, that we're looking for big things from you. Okay, not to put no pressure on you, but we're looking for big things.
Not to disappoint.
I'm sure you won't. I'm sure you won't. The pleasure is all mine.
Thank you for having
me. When you get along in the stages, we're gonna have you back.
Great, I would love that. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you again.